Well, the easiest way to explain it is that 2.5 years ago, if you remember, 12 of the biggest clubs in Europe got together and out of the blue announced that they were going to set up a breakaway Super League. Now, the fans came out very, very quickly, out onto the streets, protested. Basically, everybody in the football world came out and said, no, we have to stop this cannot happen. And within a matter of days, everything collapsed. Most of the clubs left the project, but 3 clubs remained. 3 clubs refused to give up on their dreams. Those 3 clubs were Real Madrid, Barcelona and Juventus. And what they decided to do is go away, lick their wounds, change their plans. For instance, their original plans was to have a closed league of just 18 clubs. They went away and said, no, we've had a rethink. We're now going to have 4 leagues of between 60 and 80 teams. There's going to be promotion, relegation, it's going to be an open league, and they tried to improve their PR, and they also went to the courts, and they went to the courts to try and prove that what UEFA specifically and also FIFA have been doing for the past 70 years is against EU competition rules. Basically, what EU competition rules say is that it's an open market. Everybody is free to set up a business, a company, and there should be a level playing field for everybody. And what the European Super League company were arguing was, look, what UEFA are doing is against EU laws because they're operating a monopoly. They are the only people who are allowed to organise a Europe-wide competition. And also they're abusing that position by threatening to punish anyone who tries to set up a rival league. And today in Luxembourg, in the Grand Chamber of the European Court of Justice, 15 judges came out and said, we agree with the European Super League company. And they said that FIFA and UEFA rules on them having to approve new competitions were contrary to EU law. They also said that UEFA and FIFA rules stopping clubs and players playing in new competitions was unlawful. They also said that the rules gave FIFA and UEFA exclusive control and also restricted competition. And they also said that FIFA and UEFA were abusing a dominant position. So the people behind the European Super League, well, there's only 2 clubs left now, Real Madrid and Barcelona, and they have a front company called A22 Sport, will be dancing in the street today because they will feel that they have been vindicated. They will say, look, for the past 2.5 years, we have been taking abuse and criticism from all quarters, but we stuck to our guns because we believe in the principle of open competition, open borders across Europe, and that is why we're doing what we're doing. Of course, critics will say, no, what you're doing has to do with greed, with money. You want to exploit fans by setting up new competitions and making rich clubs richer than they already are.
So, Kaveh, that's what we know now, but what could it mean, actually? What for the future of football? Do you reckon another attempt at a breakaway? Because they can?
Well, look, there have been attempts at a breakaway going on for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. I think since the 1950s or 1960s, people have been dreaming about setting up a European Super League. I think what is now going to happen in the next few weeks, months, years, is there is going to be a lot of plotting. There's going to be a lot of scheming. There are going to be a lot of bankers, businessmen, investment funds meeting in 5-star hotels across Europe trying to set up a European Super League. What is significant now, though, is that when they have got their plans drawn up, they will be able to go to UEFA. And what UEFA must do, UEFA must consider their plans in an open, transparent, proportionate and non-discriminatory way. That is what the European Court of Justice has ruled today. So do I expect there to be a European Super League next season? No, I don't. Do I expect there to be lots of plotting going on behind the scenes, rival groups trying to set up a European Super League? Yes, I do, but there are still significant hurdles before we see any kind of Super League. The first one is the fans. The fans are powerful. The fans have a very, very strong voice. Although I know at times it feels like they have no power and no voice. We saw how powerful they were 2.5 years ago when they almost single-handedly stopped the European Super League in a matter of days. So anyone else who tries to set up a European Super League has to deal with the power of the fans, because what the fans think and say and do is very, very important. I would also suggest that another significant hurdle that has to be cleared before we see a new Super League is we're going to get a new independent regulator in the UK for football. And I think what the independent regulator will say is that if you want to be a professional football club in the UK, you have to have a license, and that is a license that we issue. And one of the terms of that license is that you have to agree that you will not try to join a breakaway Super League. And finally, a lot of domestic leagues already have rules in place which say that you cannot join breakaway Super Leagues. For instance, the Premier League in England, the owners' charter, all the owners have to sign up to it, and it says that we agree that we will not join a breakaway Super League. So look, a good day for these dreamers and fantasists who want to have a league where every midweek we're going to have Liverpool playing Barcelona, Manchester United playing Real Madrid, Juventus playing Manchester City. They think this is what fans want. So it's a good day for them. They will be dancing in the street, but this is not the end of the story, because I think, my own personal opinion, is that it's still going to be very, very difficult to set up a European Super League. But what the verdict today means is that the people who want to do it, the people who are scheming and plotting, can carry on scheming and plotting and dreaming and hoping that one day this fantasy or this dream that they have will come to fruition.
So this dream continuing for Bernd Rijkaard, the chief executive of the A22, of course, promoting the concept of a new European league. What about him? Have we heard anything from A22 yet, or Bernd himself?
Yes, well, Bernd Rijkaard, who's a former German television executive, who is now the chief executive of A22 Sport. He will be holding a news conference, I think, in the next sort of 45, 50 minutes or so. And I'm sure he will be delighted. He's already been on social media. This is what he's had to say. He said, UEFA's monopoly is over. Football is free. Clubs are now free from the threat of sanction and free to determine their own futures. For fans, we propose free viewing of all Super League matches. For clubs, revenues and solidarity, spending will be guaranteed. So those are the thoughts and words of Bernd Rijkaard. But look, when you hear from A22, you have to remember who you are hearing from. A22 is effectively a front company for Real Madrid and Barcelona, because they got such a bad press 2.5 years ago when they tried to set up the European Super League. They went away, licked their wounds, tried to learn the lessons of the mistakes they'd made, and they thought, look, you know what would be really clever is to set up a new company, give it a new neutral name, A22 Sports, get somebody who is very telegenic, who speaks very well, who's a good communicator, who can speak multiple European languages, and let him be the face of our project. So when you hear from Bernd Rijkaard, remember that. He is speaking for Real Madrid and Barcelona. And judging by what happened 2.5 years ago, I'm not sure whether big clubs in Europe, especially the clubs who are members of the European Club Association, which is very closely aligned to UEFA, will want to be part of a new European Super League project that is organised by Real Madrid and Barcelona, because we know the financial problems that they have had. The final point I would make is very interesting what is happening in world football now. We are getting decisions and verdicts that affect the future of the game being made in Luxembourg, tiny country in Europe, where the European Court of Justice is situated. We're getting decisions made here in Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. A few days ago, FIFA announced the establishment of the new Club World Cup, 32 teams from 2025. So we're seeing changes in how football is funded, and I'm sure people will be thinking, you know what? We've seen what Live Golf is doing to golf with Saudi Arabian money and backing. Could we perhaps see Saudi Arabia backing a new European Super League? I've been having that conversation with a few people here actually, and they've said to me, Kaveh, good question, but you're forgetting how close Saudi Arabia is to FIFA at the moment, and I'm not sure Saudi Arabia would want to do anything to rock the boat as far as their relationship with FIFA is concerned.
That is a very good point, isn't it? But what do you reckon, Kaveh, then? We're going to have this news conference, you said, in around about 40 minutes or so. Do you expect the same kind of proposals, do you think, from A22? Do you expect something to come from this with a big announcement?
You know, if you speak to people at A22, what they will tell you is that, look, we hold our hands up. 2.5 years ago, we got it wrong. But they will say the principle of what we're trying to do is absolutely right. Because for 70 years, UEFA has had a monopoly and it's dominated its position. UEFA is supposed to be a governing body. It's supposed to be disciplining players, clubs who misbehave. It should not be a tournament organizer, and it should not be a commercial exploiter of media rights from football. That should be done by other companies. There needs to be a separation of powers. Let UEFA govern, let other companies run football. For instance, we have the situation in England where the Football Association is the governing body, but the Premier League is owned by the clubs and they effectively run their own tournament. The EFL, owned by the clubs, they run their own tournament. So that is the point of principle that A22 is fighting for. But the lessons they learned from 2.5 years ago was their PR strategy, their communications were terrible. They didn't have somebody coming out and speaking and selling their plans, because the main proponents of their plans, of course, were people like the Glazer family who own Manchester United. They don't want to come out in public and talk about anything, let alone a European Super League. The owners of Liverpool, for instance, they were behind the plans as well. They didn't want to come out and speak in public. The only person who came out and spoke in public, actually, was the president of Real Madrid, Florentino Perez, who came out and spoke on a late-night Spanish TV chat show, a very famous interview, but he doesn't speak English. So they weren't able to sell their plan. So I think they've learnt the lesson of that. Their PR and comm strategy is going to be much better in the future. The other lesson they've learned is they say what we really got wrong is that our proposed European Super League was a closed league. There was no promotion, there was no relegation. Once you were in, you were in. There was just 18 of the biggest clubs, and they were the ones who were going to share the wealth forever going forward. So they've learnt that lesson as well, and their new plans are likely to be something like 3 or 4 divisions of a European Super League, 60 to 80 teams. There will be promotion and relegation. But I think another thing that you have to watch out for is, if you believe that at the moment we've got a monopoly run by UEFA, the question that football wants to ask itself is, do we want to replace that monopoly run by UEFA with a monopoly that is run by Real Madrid and Barcelona and Juventus and other big clubs in Europe?